Well, good morning, Central family. Thank you so much for being here on this unique online experience only. And as we enter 2025, we thought it'd be a great opportunity, Justin and I, to just reflect on the things that have happened and how we can actually move forward in a really positive way in 2025.
Mm-hmm. It's been a great year. What do you tell me some of your highlights from 2024?
Yeah, well, I mean, just personally, for me, I had 2 new grandbabies, and so I love that. Also, some personal goals I've been able to accomplish some with my health.
Yeah.
So it's been really a good year for me personally. I mean, even spiritually, I feel like I've been really leaning in. And then, of course, as a church, there's been so many great things. I mean,
awesome.
From your perspective, what are some of the things that have been happening?
Yeah, I mean, September was really neat to see 500 people sign up for groups.
That was awesome.
I think that was incredible. And Niagara Christmas, we're kind of coming off the heels of that. So, I mean, just beautiful. 61 people baptized this last couple months ago, I guess, and then 100 people this whole year. So to me, those are all amazing highlights. So just God's doing some really special things in people's lives, and I love to see that.
Well, even thinking like a trunk or treat, or we've seen an increase in 25% in our Sunday attendance.
Awesome.
Community crew is crushing it.
They moved in here.
They moved in here,
Yep.
and they're feeding, again, 4,500 lunches every week in over 33
incredible.
schools. Our Child Care Central, I mean, there are just so many things that have been really positive. And again, it's funny to think about momentum. It's exciting, but it also can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. I think that's true not only in church world, but in our own personal lives.
True. Yeah, I was thinking, and we talk a lot about this, you know, all these great things happening, and we're hearing it in individuals' lives in our church, which is amazing, but we're also seeing it in our growth and different things that are happening. And one of the things we've been talking a lot about is just this idea of leveling up.
Yeah.
You know, and like with increased growth, there comes increased responsibility. And so what do you do with that? You know?
I agree. Well, for me, I don't know what you do for New Year's, but for me, I always kind of look for a verse that'll be kind of an anchoring verse for me in the new year. And for me, I came up with 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, where it says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm." And I feel like sometimes when the tide of circumstance, the waves of life come, it's easy to get swept away, positively or negatively. But it says, "Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." And this word "fully" in the original language literally means to abound, to be in abundance, to overflow, to excel. And I really feel like God is calling us to go actually above and beyond, that there's more. There's always more. And so my takeaway, is how do we level up? And the personal analogy is I've been coaching at the college level this year. And a lot of athletes, they've gone from one level, high school, where maybe they were like the all-star. And now they're at another level, and it seems overwhelming. And I think that happens in our personal lives as well. I mean, maybe you're watching and, you want to level up in your own personal experience, or maybe in your family, there's another level, there's something more, or maybe in your finances, but for us as a church as well. And it can be really discouraging because the curse of comparison kicks in, and you realize, okay, I was at the best at this level, and now I got to learn a new skill. And so we either get discouraged, or we just give up. And actually, I hope that doesn't happen for you in 2025. God does have something more for you and maybe in every area. But what would it take this year for all of us to level up in 2025? That's what I've been kind of reflecting on.
I love that. It's almost as though we don't like that feeling of being uncomfortable.
Right.
But we actually need that when we grow. That's an important part of growing, and God invites us to lean into that, Well,
it's critical, because even when I was logging back in BC long time ago, there were these trees called widowmakers, and the reason they were called a widowmaker was because they looked alive on the outside, but they were dead on the inside. Either they had root rot, or something had got inside a bug. And so when you were falling these trees, because they were hollow, they would just fall and kill people, literally. And I think that happens in life too, when we let any area of our life die, whether it's personal, spiritual, emotional, relational. It can look okay for a while, but then it'll just crumble. And so it's how to stay healthy in your roots and how to actually continue to grow. Because if a tree stops growing, it dies.
Yeah, I love that. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what we've been given and what God's doing. And when we talk about being responsible with that, I think of the stewards, the parable of the stewards.
Yeah.
And that idea that you can either look at it one of two ways. One, you have an opportunity, or when you have a limitation. You know, so when we think about stewarding what God is doing here and what he's doing in your life, what he's doing in our church, maybe through the analogy of a parable of the steward, what does that kind of look like for us?
Yeah, well, if you're not familiar with that parable, it's really great. It's actually found in Matthew 25, and it's a story of three servants, and they're all given something. Right. And the key in this story is not what you have, but what you do with what you have. Right. And that goes back to my original thought that in our culture, we have the curse of comparison. And so we think, well, I don't have that, or I don't have, and that's the the limitation mindset. But in this story, they just go, what do I have, and what would it take to get to the next level? Yeah. Like the two faithful stewards. Yeah. And so here's kind of what I was thinking about this, even as a church. And this is the hard part. What got us here won't get us there. And what we used to do, we can't do anymore. And
which is painful.
Well, nobody likes change. Mark Twain said the only person who likes to change is a baby, right? And it's true. So yeah, I think that happens in our own life as well. We can become comfortable, or we get settled. Right. I'm getting older, and I realize how easy it is the older you get to just settle. Right. To go, I've worked so hard, I've done all this stuff, and just to try to coast, but that's actually a death sentence. And so for me as a person, I really want to lean into, God, what have you given me? And why have you given me that? Just like the boy with the little lunch, right? Yeah. You've given me, maybe it feels like a little, but in the hands of God, it can be a lot. What have you given me, and how can I do more with that? Yeah. I think that's the lesson of the parable. Yeah.
So one of the things I was thinking as you were just talking was about this idea of opportunity versus maybe selfish ambition or prideful ambition. How do you kind of get to the heart of how do you know it's the right thing? How do you know it's not like too much is too much, it's a burden on us as a community, or it's like, no, this is what is right? How do you kind of navigate that?
That's such a great question. I think we have to always ask that. But in the story in Matthew 25, the one servant, the unfaithful servant, he doesn't understand the heart of it. Right. He thinks it's about preservation. Yeah. He says actually about the master, I know you're a hard taskmaster. And I think the master, in this course analogy of God, is heartbroken because he missed the heart of it. Right. It's possible to do the right things for the wrong reasons and therefore be wrong. Right. And so in this story, I think it's a reminder that the master, or God in the story, is really passionate about people. And so for me, if it doesn't reflect on how to improve people, how to see life transformation in people, we just can't do it. Right. And the other side of it is you can't do everything. Yeah. So what is the one thing that you could do to make a difference in the lives of the people around you? And for us as a church, it is easy to get caught in the minutia, the organizational structure. But if we could keep our hearts soft. And so I love our team because we've learned to say no to everything that will keep us from our ultimate purpose of seeing life transformation. We've seen that across all the different organizations and partnerships that we have.
What about for somebody who's watching who personally they're going, what kinds of things do I aggressively pursue in this new year versus God, what do you want me to do? How would you speak to somebody who's trying to navigate that?
That is so good because it's really the why. So I'll give you an example. Yeah. So you might say, I'm going to make more money this year. Right. Okay, but why? Right. So you can buy stuff for yourself, which is empty, or so you can invest in people and relationship. Yeah. Or I'm going to get healthy. For me, I'm right now, I'm really consumed with getting healthy. And the reason isn't so that I look good at the beach. Good. Right. Yeah, although that doesn't hurt, I'll be honest. But really it's because I want to hold my grandkids. I want to be strong and vital enough that when they want me to do things, I can actually participate. And again, I can't. Here's the other thing. You can't control the future. You can only set yourself up for it. Right. God knows exactly. God already has everything planned out, but you can position yourself for a prime opportunity. I think about that of the heroes of the Bible. They were just in, I wanted to say the right place at the right time, but they were in the God place at the God time. Right? And so if you do everything you can to prepare yourself, God will take that and use you powerfully. But if you're just like the guy, the unfaithful, he buries it. Right. If you bury it, nothing will ever happen. Yeah. You have a talent, you have an ability, you have a relationship, you're in a work environment, you're in a school environment. And if you're not leveraging that, or at least setting yourself up for success, you will never experience the fullness, that back to that passage, the fullness, the abounding, the above and beyond, the more that God has for you.
That's good. Okay, so as you're talking to us, thinking as we go into this new year, there's a lot of maybe uncertainty of, the economy. This is a year where our leaders are probably going to jostle politically around who's going to control what, and economically, our dollar value, you name it. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, for fear.
Right.
So I guess as it relates to, what God is doing in this new year, how do we take some of those feelings of maybe uncertainty around this new year, maybe fear, maybe sort of unrest in that area, and how do we sort of direct that in a way that would sort of follow what God is inviting us into?
I'll be honest. I think this is something that has finally triggered for me. And it's taken me all these years to really, really lean into this. Right. And it's this simple principle. I am not responsible for results. God is.
That's good.
I am simply responsible to be obedient. When I understood this, and I wish younger Bill would have learned this as a parent, how my children turn out, what choices they make is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be obedient, to give them everything they can to make good choices, but ultimately I cannot control the results. Same with my finances. My goal in life is not to make a ton of money. My job is to be obedient with my finances, and God will give the results. Once you understand that, and as a leader, that is huge, because I see so many of my friends, they break down emotionally, physically, spiritually, because they put this pressure on themselves that they're responsible for the results. They're the savior.
Right.
And that is simply not true. You are not the savior of your finances, your life, your family, your health. God is. So you just need to put yourself in a place of obedience. What he says to do, just do it. And I think if you can break it down into that simple, everyday, look, your past you can't change. Ask God to forgive, and he will. Your future, God's got it. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. All you can do is say, break it down into what is the right thing for me to do today. And man, that's when you find peace and you get the results.
Well, it's freeing too, because it's like God, I love that both for us as a church, God says, I will build my church.
Yes.
And then also he will build my life.
That's right.
So both those things are so freeing when you don't have to carry the weight of it's on me.
Well, and in his story in Matthew 25, I love the master's response. He says, you've been faithful with a little, meaning you did everything you could with what you had. Now I can trust you with more. And there's so many people going, I want more, but they're not even faithful with what they have. So maybe start there. Maybe start with, okay, what is my situation? How can I be obedient and faithful? Maximize this moment for God's glory, not my own, and his purpose, leaving the results to him, and he will multiply it. He will. Like, that's just God's nature. So the first servant didn't know God's heart. The other two did. And they said, you know what? We're just going to do what God or the master's asked us to do. And they were given more, abundant, full. They leveled up.
Right. Speaks to God's trust in us because we've been faithful with what he's given us.
100%.
Okay, well, in our last little bit of time, I'd love to talk about 2025.
Sure.
And if you were to encourage someone who's maybe sitting on their couch, maybe they're driving, listening to this, and they're just thinking about this new year, maybe New Year's resolutions, which I know you don't love New Year's resolutions. Just do what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
But as we think of 2025, how would you encourage people to just get the most out of this year? What are you hoping for them? What are you praying for them for this upcoming year?
Yeah, it's really good. Actually, I wrote some of them down. I think it's one, seek every opportunity that is in front of you, in the sense that, okay, let's talk physically. Okay, stop talking about it, and acknowledge why, and just start taking the one step, just one small step. For me, I talk about this a lot. It's my 3/8. If I get up every morning and I just take 8 minutes to stretch, do some physical workout, 8 minutes to prepare my mind, and 8 minutes to prepare my spirit. It's a manageable thing that I can do every morning. Now, of course, I'd like to do more, but that if I start with that, I think take every opportunity. The second thing I wrote down was to understand why you're doing everything. It's got to be about people. As a coach too, this was actually a big change, and as a pastor, it's not about the task. Yes, it's always fun when you see success. That's awesome. But it's ultimately about the people. And when you see that, it actually takes it from the burden of a task that you perform to the joy of serving people so they can be who they were created to be. And then the final thing I would just say is take calculated risks. And this, like, you know why people are successful? It's because they're willing to do what no one else is willing to do. And they're willing to take courageous risks. Calculated, I think of Peter getting out of the boat. It's like, Jesus says, do this, and he goes, okay. He has no idea how it's gonna turn out. And to us, it doesn't look like it turned out really well because he sinks, but he walked on water.
He's the only one who walked.
And I think it was that experience that actually later in his life, he could look back and go, God never failed me. And so I think, if I could just encourage you, what is in your hand? Like what opportunity do you have? Where do you work? Where do you go to school? Where could you serve this year? Who could you serve this year? And then take that risk and actually just believe that God will do it. All you have to do is be obedient. Actually, honestly, to be honest, it's just show up. One of the things that I think about our church family, what I love, is that there's so many people who just show up.
It's true.
They show up to hold a baby on a Sunday morning. They show up to help people find a parking spot. They show up to clean or to prepare the space. They just show up to a group. For me, my guys group, we've been going like 15 years now. And honestly, the beauty of it, we just show up. And when you show up, God is there waiting. I think that is the really powerful thing. And so God is waiting for you in 2025. He's never gonna leave you, so you have to worry about that. But the more that he has for you, it's waiting for you if you just are willing to walk in it.
That's so encouraging. I love that. For me, I was thinking the image of leaning in. I want to take a calculated risk that take God at his word. If he says it, he's going to do it, and he can do it. And he can do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine. And I just want to lean into that, this coming year. So I love that. Thanks for that encouragement. I'd love for you to bless our church family. Before you do, we got a few things coming up that are really exciting for just people to take an opportunity just to lean into what God is going to do in their lives this year. And I want to just let people know of a few of those things. Number one is we're starting a brand new series in January called Get Ready With Me. And I love it because it's built on this idea that Jesus' invitation is to readiness, which is just more than the physical, like you talked about. It's actually inner readiness. And so we're gonna be talking about how to level up that way, starting January 5th. So I'd love for you to come back for that. We also have our days of prayer. And these are powerful. We have starting on January the 13th. That's Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. That's going to be in person and online. And so those dates are available on our website, centralcc.ca/days of prayer. And those are really powerful. They're so good for our church. And so if you want to just kind of lean in and go like, God, what do you want to do in my life? And hear from him. It's a great way to start the year.
And it's online as well. So
it's online. So that's all information is there. And then we have a place for you, for those that are just brand new wanting to get into groups. That begins on January the 14th, 21st, and the 28th. That's happening at 7 o'clock here. Pastor Bill's going to be a part of that with Janet. And then if you're looking to level up your leadership, we also have a place for more, which is starting on January the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th during our second experience. So all that info is on our groups page, centralcc.ca/groups. And then the last thing I just want to let people know about too is if you'd like to invest in what God is doing here, we just believe generosity is the best way to live our lives. And so one of the things that's really important for us as well is just finishing this year strong. In fact, a lot of what we do relies on a strong year finish. And so if you'd like to give, we're asking people if they would consider giving $50 or $100 or $250 over and above what they regularly give as we finish the year strong. And you can do that on our website by December the 31st. That's tax receivable. And that's at centralcc.ca/give. So lots of ways to get involved. I just believe God's going to do some amazing things in my life, in my family, and in yours. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And so, Pastor Bill, would you just bless our church family?
Yeah, and as we look ahead to 2025, I want to just actually encourage you with these words that I began with, found in 1 Corinthians 15:58. So therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. And I don't know what 2024 was like, and I don't know what situation or even crisis came your way. And maybe you're watching right now and you feel like it was too much, or is it worth it? And my encouragement to you is, yes, it is. Stand firm. God has created you in his image to make it in this moment. Let nothing move you. And always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord. I think God has something amazing for you. And I think if I could encourage you with this blessing, don't get overwhelmed with all of the stuff. Just trust God with today and this moment. And yes, God has an incredible preferred future, but don't get anxious about that. Just do what God has called you today. So be obedient. So I bless you. May 2025 be the best year you've ever experienced, not because your circumstances outside are necessarily shifting or changing, but because you are shifting and changing and becoming who you were created to be. And if you do that, God will take it and multiply it. We bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.